Good morning and welcome to our Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting. I'd like to take and call this meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Mike Berlin,
Here.
Laura Negro,
Here.
Pat Kinney,
Here.
Ron Stendor,
Here.
Marty Vitek.
Here.
We have a quorum. Going on to item number 2, approval of the agenda.
This is Pat. I'll make a motion to approve.
Ron Stender will second.
We have a motion by Pat, a second by Ron. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Public comments. We have Ashbacher. Yes. Oh.
Good morning. My name is Sergeant Mel Ashbacher. I've been employed with Ashland County in the jail for 20 years. I'd like to take a few minutes of your time to address 2 issues: ARPA funds and pay raises. First, ARPA funds. This money can be used for essential workers who put their lives and their families' lives in danger during the pandemic. Who are essential workers whose life was in danger during the pandemic? Correctional officers, healthcare workers, and law enforcement. This should be a consideration when deciding who should get ARPA funds. I understand the county is trying to balance their budget. However, I had to come to work during the pandemic and risk exposing my family and myself to COVID. I feel $5,000 per correctional officer would be an appropriate amount because of the risk we had to take on a daily basis for 2 years during the pandemic. This should weigh heavily on the decision of who should get ARPA funds and how much they should get. My second point is pay raises. For the past few years, correctional officers employed by Ashland County have received no pay raise or something less than 2%. The 2% that is being considered is insufficient when you factor in health insurance costs. On paper, it looks good, but in reality, it's not a true pay raise. I feel a 5% pay raise is a fair amount to ask for, considering it has been well over 10 years since we have received a fair cost of living increase. This is a small token when you figure approximately 2% of the 5% would go to health insurance costs. The responsibilities and duties of correctional officers warrant the increase in our pay. We risk our life and health daily when at work. Our job demands that we deal with people who are violent, mentally unstable, and we risk the possibility of contracting a disease. We perform our duties to the best of our abilities every day. I'd like to give you an idea when the last time correctional officers received a 3% or greater pay raise. It was when the county administrator was Mr. Kiewig. That has been 10+ years. The correctional officers are long overdue for a pay raise that will cover health insurance and the cost of living. Our job places our family and us at risk 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I have been assaulted in the jail, receiving 7 sutures and having my glasses broken while performing my duties. I did not have the luxury not to come to work or not interact with the individual. My job demanded that I be there. I would ask that you take the time to really look hard at compensating correctional officers accordingly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mel. Lieutenant Kim Lavasser.
Good morning, Lieutenant Kim Lavasser from the Ashland County Jail. Just here to talk about the usual pay raises and the ARPA funds for my staff at the jail. I think everyone knows how I've been here at every meeting talking about how I feel that my staff has not gotten what they deserve over the last well, many years, it's basically like we're the redheaded stepchild. No one sees us behind the concrete walls. They drive by, they don't see what we do, who we take care of, what goes on. I did bring last week, a list of the staff duties that my people are doing. It's 3 pages long, and that's just what I asked somebody to do over a 2-day period. That's what they came up with right off the cuff. So, and I'm sure there's lots more that could have gone on that list, but I just asked, hey, just come up with something real quick for me. So I just want everybody to know that I think that we deserve a lot more. But I know you've been hearing me week after week after week. So I think you guys get the gist of it. But what I'd like to also say is I appreciate you guys here doing this job, having to come here. As I know you guys are involved in all these different board meetings and having to come also. And you're doing a terrific job. So I really appreciate you guys as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Any other 3 minutes? Any other 3 minutes? Last call. Any other 3 minutes? Thank you. Let's move on. Approval of the Executive Committee and Finance Committee minutes, October 21st.
This is Marty Vitek. I move we approve the minutes.
This is Laura Negro. I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second. Pat's got a hand up.
I was just going to ask if we could share the screen since we've got all these big TVs now for the documents we're looking at. That's all. Thank you.
Lori, can you set the sharing button? It's because you're host now, only you can share. You can set it for anybody sharing.
We have a motion by Marty, seconded by Laura. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Presentation update on the financial consultants.
I believe that's me here. My name is Mike Konechny, and I'm working with the county. Me and Steve Corbell and I are working, and we were at the courthouse for the better part of 3 days last week. And I believe you have in front of you a document that we updated, the implementation plan from the recommendations we made in July. And we updated that with the current status of each one. And I'd just like to say we believe we made a lot of progress last week. And we've been communicating with county officials almost every day. And we're continuing to work on this. And, you know, the implementation plan is color coded, just to give you an idea of, you know, there's certain recommendations we feel we basically have completed already, but a lot of them are scheduled to be completed by the end of the calendar year. And then other ones we feel will take more time and will be pushed out to 2022. So I can go over each one of them, or I guess, I don't know if you wanted to, yeah, Dan, I don't know, the other document do they have with the comments on? I don't know if that's the other one.
Yeah, they have the Word document too.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, that gives a little more detail on what we've done so far, you know, where we're at, when we expect to do more, and different things like that. But just in a very general statement, I mean, we feel things are moving along very well. And we're getting cooperation from all your employees, and there's been no roadblocks or any kind of hiccups so far. So I guess I just open it up to any questions or comments you have of me. I don't know if we want to get into any specific ones. We'd be certainly be happy to talk about them, but some of the things that we've done were, we wanted to get your computer system set up so more people had access in a controlled way. And that's where Steve was my partner, is more attuned to that and the inner workings of Springbrook. And he worked for maybe a day and a half with your staff on doing that last week. So that's going to be the framework for rolling it out to more departments, with more automation being done directly by departments. But basically where we're headed here. So I guess that's all I really wanted to say. If anybody has any comments or questions, or Dan, if you want to add something, that's fine too. Whatever.
Well, one, I just want to thank all the staff. They've done a great job cooperating with Steve and Mike. So went really well while they're here. Also, one of the things that came out of this, and maybe Mike, you can expand a little bit, is buying 2 new modules for Springbrook. One is an accounts receivable module, so everybody will be entering their own invoices out. So like, in my office, Lori issues invoices to different municipalities every once in a while. And so she would be entering those now instead of the clerk's office. And it would be kept track of in Springbrook. So we know when our receivables haven't been coming in. The second one is an employee time card center, basically. And employees would be entering their hours, and they would be entering their vacation requests in there for their department heads to approve, and everything would populate into payroll. So it would keep much greater track of hours and benefits for employees. And Mike, maybe do you know a little bit about that? Is that more of a Steve thing?
Yeah, yes, and I can just add, Dan, that both of those softwares will increase internal control. I'm an ex-auditor, so I know a little bit about internal control, and having just a little bit, just in general, the invoicing package will allow any department to set on an invoice. It'll be recorded in the Springbrook. You record the revenue and the receivable. So there's a permanent record of an amount owed and due from somebody. And then in general, the collection can be monitored monthly. And if people are delinquent, and, additional notices can go out and so forth. Prior to this, each department sort of handled that on their own with, Word or Excel invoices or whatever system they had. And there wasn't a automated record made at the initiation of the invoice. And then the employee self-service also adds internal control significantly in the reporting of vacation and sick leave and tracking that, and what is their balance and how many hours are. So it's all monitored, and exactly when a person took sick leave, the data will be tracked in the system, and vacation and things like that. And it's just a better system with the employee filling out that record and taking and that being phased right into the payroll system. So we feel those are significant benefits to the county.
Laurie, you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Now, Mike, are we going to be able to do the quarterly versus actual printouts for committees for their different departments underneath? So that way we have some simplified financials for each one to monitor?
Yes, I mean, we're making the system available on almost any computer can inquire into the system and print off reports. So I would think that it just needs to be set up which departments and how you want to regulate that or distribute that. I don't see a problem in that being set up. I guess
Okay.
we haven't discussed that with county officials, but we did provide a relatively high level budget to actual report that's used by another county that they like, and this county likes, that they submit this to the county board members every month. It's a real high level though. General fund, human services, county road and bridge fund, you know, just like whatever. I think you have 1, 2, 3, you have 6 funds right now, major funds. And you would get the where are they at compared to budget on expenditures and revenues. So you can take a look at that. Dan has that if that meets, that can meet the needs in a big high level general way, but I think you were talking something more specific with budget detail on.
Let's say I'm chair of PPLE and we oversee emergency management, the coroner, sheriff's department, and then the building fund, you know, for taking care of all the buildings and properties and such. Just sometimes, I mean, yes, I'll dig through 86 pages of the whole GL, but there's only going to be so many people that want to do that. But it's nice having the budgeted versus actual for those committee, for those departments, for our committee, because I feel that's our piece of oversight. So if we're watching those numbers, then when it comes to it, if there's something bigger, we can bring it to finance. And then the same with any other committee with the departments that they oversee. So it kind of breaks it down since we're supposed to be government by committee the way we're set up.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I don't know, and we'd have to work with the county on, I don't believe you're using the department codes as much in the system, and that might be, some changes might be needed to the chart of accounts to separate your revenues and expenditures like that. So we'll look into that. We're planning on coming, just to point out, we're planning on coming back up to Ashland the end of November, the week of, I think it's the 28th or 29th of November. So we'll be back there. We can look into that.
Okay. My next question is for finance committee, because like I said, I'm willing to dig through 86 pages of general ledger, but is there an easier dashboard that could be set for finance to hit the high points that we need to watch?
Well, that report I mentioned before on the high level, that would be appropriate for finance, but it's a pretty high level report because it summarizes all the general fund departments into one line. We did look at the dashboard that's available in this, what's called the Tableau module of Springbrook. And again, we think it requires some changes in your chart of accounts to effectively use that. So we'll look into that. We're going to continue to look into that, and if that can be used. But I think that high level report we believe can be rolled out starting, well, in February with the January transactions. Because we need to make some changes in the way tax levy is recorded, the way your funds are set up, which we're pretty much set to do that, but it doesn't make sense to implement that until the beginning of the new year.
Okay, and my last question is, were there any other issues you found while going through everything? I know there was 30 things hit that first big recommendation. And I know you just mentioned department codes and changes with the chart of accounts. Is there anything else besides that you found?
No, nothing else.
Cool beans. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Laura. Any other questions, Pat?
This is, I suppose, both for Mike and the administrator. So if we add those two modules, does it change staff time workload in any way? And in particular, is there somebody that has to oversee, in particular, the invoices? So if we did that, on the one hand, it seems convenient that each department can create their own invoices and send them out, but is there somebody that's already managing oversight for all of those invoices? Does it change that any? Does it help us bring in revenue that we might otherwise miss? And does this in any way help us with concerns that have been in the audit for a long time?
I can respond to that. Well, first of all, most of your departments do not, other than highway, do not do a lot of invoicing. You know, it's sort of, you know, certain times a year they might do some, or less than 10 or 5 a month. It's not a huge thing for most departments other than highway, which invoices all your townships and other governments too. So we don't feel that really the invoicing module will reduce time in departments because they're going to enter the invoice and then they're basically done with it. Then it increases the duties of the finance people in the county. The treasurer's office will do the direct collecting of the invoice, and your finance people in the county clerk's office will monitor, meaning they'll print out the receivable list, see who's late, and they have to develop procedures for follow through. We implemented this at Washera County about 3 or 4 years ago, and it doesn't seem, it works out very well, I think, and no one expressed any workload shift that was significant.
Yeah, Mr. Kinney, what it does is it helps us to keep track of receivables that are out there. Right now, receivables are kept by department and they're not entered into the main system. By using this receivables module, everything gets stuck into the main Springbrook system, and you and I and every department head will know what receivables are still out there and what do we have to collect. Things won't get missed. Like, it's possible they could now. So it's keeping better track of the receivables.
So what I'm trying to weigh is the benefits versus the costs of this.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to weigh the benefits of this versus the cost of this.
Well, losing just a few receivables a year ends up paying for it.
Do you think we've been losing some?
I don't know if we have or not. This is a method to prevent that from happening.
Point of clarification, I know before Clark had left, we had discussed this before. There were things that were being missed and not collected on just because of the paper trail. And I don't know the amount of it, but I know that it was mentioned before.
We did revise the policy on submitting requests for payment. And that was, I think the ones you're referring to, if we're on the same page, were ones that people kind of fell through the cracks. And I don't know that this software would change that. I think that was, my impression was that was just something let through the cracks and maybe not a clear policy. But
well, anytime you can get something recorded in the main system, it becomes accountable then. As opposed to having things recorded in each individual department. They're the only ones who really know what's going on. And I'll pick on my office. You know, like I said, Lori sends out these invoices once a year to municipalities. She's the only one in the world that knows those invoices go out. And now I do. But the fact is, that's all the tracking there is. If something were to happen to us, we don't know where to find those invoices. We don't know they exist. They don't get paid. Well, nobody knows that. And the same is true in every other department. These things are happening. So the possibility of losing these and the county not collecting the revenue or not collecting it for a very long time really does exist. But when you enter it into the main Springbrook system, the clerk's going to know that receivable is out there. The treasurer is going to know it's out there. I'm going to know it's out there. So it ensures that we're getting timely collection of the money that we're owed, and that things aren't just sitting there waiting for somebody to find them and then say, oh, we got to collect this. This means we can keep track of it, on top of it, and keep our cash flow moving forward, which is really an issue.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, we can move on. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, you're welcome.
Emergency management budget. That in this package here, where is this? I like guidance.
Okay, so this is just on a handout there?
Sorry, Laura, she brought this one in herself, so I wasn't able to send this to you.
Anyways, afterwards, if somebody could scan that in and put it in with the packet for the agenda item, I would appreciate it.
Okay, it should be on the screen.
This way. Okay.
You
Good
have
morning.
Dorothy Tank.
For anyone that does not know, are familiar with me, my name is Dorothy Tank. I'm the Emergency Management Director, and I've been in that position for 18 years. I was asked by Mike at the county board meeting to come and discuss the emergency management budget, give a little insight into the budget because of some comments I put in a letter that I had presented or had stated regarding a raise greater than the 2% for emergency management. So that's why I'm here. What you have in front of you and what's up on the screen, I thought the best way to show this is to kind of go back for, at least I went back through 2010 and show the awards. Every year, emergency management is funded by what's called the Emergency Management Performance Grant, commonly referred to as EMPG. And that is based on a formula. And so the state distributes that from the federal government. And so there is a formula that they calculate that out every year. And so that's in the column where it says EMPG award. So for 2020, and I operate on several different fiscal years. Right now, I'm in federal fiscal year. We started October 1st of 22. So on October 1st, so we're looking at a budget here of an award of $43,894. What that means is that 50% of emergency management's budget, in upwards of 50%, is funded by federal dollars. What you will see in the reimbursement received and the turn back column for the past many years is we are not utilizing that full award amount. And down at the bottom, I'm giving you a list of what goes toward that, what are the eligible expenses and what that award amount is used for. The two main priority items are salary and fringe benefits. Those are the two top. Then there are other items that are eligible, things like anything computer related, office supplies, postage, the phone expenses. In previous years, travel was a big expense. And then you will notice in the comment sections, certain years, We've tried to, when I say we, talking with the sheriff and the chief deputy who I report to, we've looked at some of our needs certain years, and knowing that we have a certain amount of funding that we're not utilizing, is looking at what maybe pieces of equipment we need and can use that funding for. And so I've made some jotted down some notes that we have used that funding toward purchases to help draw down that, so we're not turning back so much money. Does that kind of help explain?
What is the timing of the award versus the time period to use it? Because you've asked for a raise in part from this money because it would cover part of that. But do you make decisions about what equipment you might need prior to the start of 2022, or do you have until the end of 2022 to use that money and figure that out at that point?
The application period is somewhat of a disadvantage for me. So let me, in response to your question, my application period is August 30th. So this has to be submitted long before a lot of decisions are made here. So it's kind of my best guesstimate. The time period is run October 1st through September 30th. And anytime in between there, decisions and modifications can be made to the grant. So what's happening since when 2022, they have increased federal dollars just this one time with the American Rescue Plan Act, which, based on my usual budget, if I were to look at salary fringe and my usual operating expenses, is usually within the $30-some thousand range when you look at my other year awards. And so that's going to leave a kind of, I hate to use the word surplus, but a surplus of over $10,000. Now at the Sheriff's Department, working with the Chief Deputy, the Sheriff, the Communications Director, we know that we can we can benefit from, and there is a strong need for certain communication equipment based on many of our search and rescues that we've been on. We will be working on what that is, and we can modify that grant to purchase that. So the problem is, this is a 50% grant. So the $10,000 is there for the grant, but we would need approval from finance to have at least a match of that dollar amount for the 22 budget.
Hey, Dorothy, excuse me. Am I to understand that fiscal 21 is ended?
Correct. And I'm working on the closeout that's due at the end of this month.
Okay, now, yeah, you got right. You have 30 days to clean up the books. Now, the extra 2% increase, pay increase that you're looking for, and that 10,000 turn back funds is in 22. Is that where you're projecting that at?
Yes.
Or-
Yes.
Okay, I misunderstood that to be because the documents that I had and I read off at the county board meeting was, I assumed that was 21, fiscal year 21 monies.
No, that's 22.
Those are 22 funds. And that's where, that's where we're at right now. So like, say, for instance, the grant from EMPG award is going to be $43,894. So that's the amount that we're going to need from the county board in their budget to facilitate the needs over on your end over there. What I see here is a $10,000, approximately $10,000 increase from the Emergency Management Program grant over last year, which with the $10,000 with that $10,000 increase, with a $10,000 increase from the county, you're going to have a excess of $20,000 for fiscal year 22. Am I correct?
Correct.
So the equipment pool fund or the equipment fund that you listed, or there's a authorized equipment list, which I don't know what it is, but you are currently working with the sergeant and mix shop.
The chief deputy and the sheriff and the communications director, yes. The authorized, the FEMA's authorized equipment list is an enormously long document that gives categories of equipment that they will approve, categories that they will approve for this funding to be utilized to purchase equipment. And that is what we have to use to reference in this grant. So you are correct in that, generally speaking, the $10,000 with a $10,000 match from the county, we're looking at $20,000 of equipment. Or if, and so if we're looking at, as far as communication equipment can be very expensive. And so that could come down to just a couple pieces of equipment. We don't have those specific details yet, but as we work on that, that will be defined better as we have, as we look at, yes, we're approved for this money, and we can always come back and update the committees on
Sure.
that.
I guess what I'd like to do is have as much information available to the board here so that we can make a recommendation to the county board, the full board, for their approval in 3 weeks. Yeah,
I'm not sure that we will have the obstacle that we're running up against is some of the partners that are instrumental in making the decision on this communication. Our equipment are not available until like December.
mhm.
So, and I know you're making the decisions on the budget now. So we won't be able to necessarily maybe provide the specifics
Yes.
until sometime after that time.
Let me ask the question.
Pardon?
Let me ask the question,
Okay.
which is extra $20,000. You folks would not have a problem expending that in 2022.
I don't foresee that being a problem. I do not foresee that being a
All
problem.
right. Any other questions for,
So in an earlier document you shared with the board, you were asking for a 2% raise from the county. And if I understood the document right, and clarify this, if I'm not understanding right, you were asking for an additional 2% from this EMPG award, or you?
What I was explaining in the letter was, it sounded as though from the various committees that there was great support in grant funding opportunities. And I was trying to point out that if the county, since the county was providing the increase, the wage increase through the American Rescue Plan Act, which is not levy, correct?
Correct.
Considering that a grant, that full 2% for emergency management come from the American Rescue Plan Act, and then I would match that 2% with the EMPG, which would be the 4%, and that would all be grant funding. Does that make sense?
That was one possible interpretation when I read that. The other interpretation we could have is that one half would be paid for through this grant and the other half through the county, so that the pay raise would be the 2% that most other employees are getting.
Yes, that is the other option.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so I think if this were to go to the board, we should be clear, are we willing to support that roughly $10,000 in the budget, so that if they have use for it, which it sounds like they do, that money is available. And at this point, it sounds like it would need to go on the debt levy, but money collected on the debt levy does need to be expended. So if we don't expend it for emergency management, we'd have to move it to something else to expend it, to use it during the year. So I think whatever we send to the board, we should be clear on the impact on raises here so that we're all on the same page.
Thank you. Laura?
Dorothy, I have a couple questions. With this money, if we match it, do we keep it or is it use it by the time the period's done or lose it?
You use it by September 30th, and like all the other years, it gets turned back and other counties receive it through a redistribution.
Okay. So,
And just to clarify, it's a challenge in the fact that I try to use it as much as I can. There's kind of a fluctuation in, as an example, another example is in office expenses. I'm part of the sheriff's department, and on the administrative side, we have a copier printer that is used by multiple divisions. Emergency management is a division, patrol is a division, communications is a division. In the past, I have made a recommendation. Can we look at somehow coming up with a cost factor that would break down each division, contribute so much because of use of paper, of ink, electricity, that we are charged for use of that central copier printer that would increase the expenditure for office supplies. Because right now my office supply was reduced to $500 on the county's budget, and increase my office supply and decrease the sheriff's supply to capitalize or make better use,
Use of the
efficiency
grant.
of the grant. That was denied. And I didn't understand why that, to me, that didn't make any sense, and it wasn't efficient use. I really feel as though we were losing out, and I never understood why we couldn't do that, but that was not my call. So that's the other option. I try to do the best I can. Travel pre-COVID was usually one of those items, a high ticket item that could be $2,500 a year. Now we're down to $0. So I look at other ways where other things that can come in. So things are on a sliding scale. And so it's kind of hard to always keep things in check. So the figures may vary a bit, but I'm always looking for ways to capitalize on it. And I'm sorry, Laura, you had another question.
you are okay, Dorothy. I appreciate how innovative you're trying to be with that and how you're trying to use these grant funds up, because as we get them in, that's to our best advantage is to use this, especially if we have to match it. So I appreciate that very much. And it would be nice to see you guys having copier codes for your departments. But so in your 2020 line there, it says we turned back $1,601.53. And that was because we couldn't find enough expenses to, okay.
Correct.
All right, so that's how we're missing is we're not being able to fill up some of that.
Correct.
Is it so far that you were only given so much in your budget? So when you hit your budget line, then we're just going, okay, now we give it up?
Correct. And when certain ideas or certain things do come up where we could utilize that funding, items were rejected or declined as ways of being able to use it at the time.
Okay. Is that administratively through the county administrator, or is that department?
It usually came through the county administrator as well as going through committee and trying to present items. And it wasn't supported at committee at that time either.
Okay. All right, I would hope that Dan could figure out a way of trying to use that as, because it sounds like Dorothy's trying to be the most proactive. And that's what I love about the people that are in our organization. We are definitely really good at pivoting and finding innovative ways to use the funding that we have access to. And I sense some frustration from you, Dorothy, because you're trying so hard to make sure that you're doing the best that you can for the county. And I give you kudos for that. I'm sorry you're frustrated, but thank you, Mike, for bringing this up and putting this back to committee, because I think these are the people that we need to look at the strongest as the ones that are being innovative. And like I said, Dan, if you can work with her, I don't know how to, I mean, Pat was talking about clarifying how we do this with a pay raise. Is this within the administrator's piece to okay this? Or are we going to have to take action as a finance committee is my next question.
If you want to approve a pay raise, then the finance committee has to make that decision. If you want us to juggle, find the expenses to fill up the grant, then I can work with Dorothy on that. But actual appropriating money is a job of the legislature.
Gotcha.
This is Pat. Let me start with the pay raise. And these are my thoughts on this. When I look through the numbers that we've got this bump in 2022, and that's the result of whatever's going on outside of the county. And my guess is it's probably going to come back down towards that 34,000 level. So that's the baseline, and that money is awarded because of the federal government. And in terms of the pay raise, my feeling is that this bump comes for reasons outside of the county, probably going to go back, and it's the baseline, and we stay there. I would have a hard time explaining a raise over 2%, given all of the other employees in their situation. Not that people in the county don't deserve it. I don't have the answers on where we get the money, and when the Arpa money's gone in a few years, it really, really worries me about what's going to happen. I wish I had more answers, and I don't. I ran for the county board hoping I could find more answers. So, and I wish I could. But as far as that bump from where we're at now to where we're going, really simple question. If I synthesize this correctly, tell me if I am or not. I don't see a lot of under the comment section in the last few years. Is that a result of the county board not putting money in your budget so that you could pay for things with money, because you just didn't have enough money there? So you use it for staff, wages and benefits and a few other things, but that was it. And so are we paying for things 100% as a county that we could otherwise be getting this grant to pay for half of, because we didn't put the money in there up front as much as we could have?
I don't know that I'm following your question, because basically, as far as for 21, I can't speak on fiscal year 21 because I haven't closed out the grant. So I haven't financially closed out the grant. So I don't know where we stand financially on 21. But everything from 2020 on 20 to 2010, when we've given money back, let me just say that, I met all the grant deliverables. So it wasn't that we didn't meet any of the grant deliverables. We just couldn't use the money that we were awarded for any of the eligible expenses.
And so what I'm trying to get at is, if you couldn't use some of the money that was awarded, Is that because the county finance and board did not approve putting money in the budget so that we had our half for the match? Because when you ask the person behind you, could we use this money? The head nods yes. So it suggests to me that we have needs. And what I'm wondering is, are we paying for some of those things that we're going to need at some point with 100% of county funds versus we could have been using half of this money towards some of those things, but we're not using all of the money we could here because we're not putting a matching part in the budget. And the administrator, the previous one, says, look, you're out of money. I'm sorry, we don't have the match for you.
I think that we could be using the money more efficiently, let me say. And the program itself, emergency management program, could be much more efficient. And I'll speak to and I think this is what you're asking. When we go down and look at 2015 and 16, when we used all those funds, we also were using those funds to contribute to a part-time 10 hours per week, an emergency management, a program assistant. I am probably, before the GIS coordinator position, I was the only position in this county that doesn't have any office support. I am a one-person department that does everything. Just because I'm located in the sheriff's department doesn't mean that the sheriff's department staff provides any assistance to me. I am only located in that office. That at that time, we were using the money to offset and provide assistance, a program assistance, which indeed provided and made the program even more efficient.
So I'm trying to figure out if we need a motion here, and if so, for what on this. So I'm going to ask the administrator. So if we wanted to put more money in that budget to match the grant, how much would we need to put in there? And if we do that, then is the expenditure of that fund entirely up to emergency management here, or are you involved with that too because of the county putting money in for the match?
One moment, please. Well, it looks to me, and you can see under protection of person property in the budget, it's about halfway down that the extra revenue has been accounted for as an expenditure. So we are already appropriating the extra money in the budget. So if you look, the previous year was 65,000 expenditures. This year it's 73. So
this year we're including the full amount.
yeah, it looks that way. Within a few dollars, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me too. So there isn't any, because this is already in the budget version that was approved at the last meeting. We don't need to consider any changes to have the full amount in our budget going forward. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm sorry, I wasn't fully understanding your question.
Okay. So I think we have all of the money to match that. And then in terms of process, for those expenditures, is that entirely up to emergency management, or does that involve the administrator or anybody else? Sheriff's Department?
Well, technically, emergency management is under the sheriff's department's line of control, but I'll be happy to work with the sheriff's department to find any eligible expenses.
And also, Dorothy.
And we'll make sure we
Okay.
use up the grant.
Okay.
And also, Dorothy, when it comes time to, because it seems like your pay reimbursement comes at an odd time of the year, I would say bring that to PPLE when we talk about some of the budgeting items. So that way we can have committee support behind this and a little more oversight besides, bringing it in. So, the more people that know, how that goes.
And that's fine. I don't have a problem with the transparency. I'm very okay with that.
Thank you, Laura and Pat. I just have one question to throw on top of this whole pile of paper. This is the only fund that you get for the operation of emergency management. You have no other funds coming in at all whatsoever?
That is incorrect. I did not want to complicate this process because there is another funding source that complements the county in the sense, this is federal and this is the major funding that comes in that pays 50% of the overall process. There is what's called EPCRA, Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act funding that comes into emergency management. It's a state program, and that it's around $5,500. I didn't bring that with me this year. And that actually, so roughly speaking, whatever the 50% contribution the county has toward the program, this offsets the county's portion. So it reduces, so it kind of complements the financial part. So whatever we're bringing in on that program as revenue helps to offset the county's portion. This year it's $5,664. So it helps to draw down that 50% a little bit.
That sounds good. Thank you very much. We're running over on time here, so I'd like to keep moving. I suppose you would not be opposed to me stopping over and visiting you at any point. Call first.
Call ahead and we'll schedule a time.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Pat,
Can we go back and look at the agenda a moment, please?
agenda. Okay, where we at? Number 5 is the, number 6 is discussion emergency management plan.
Could we project it for a moment, please? So I'm wondering if I failed to hear something earlier. When you asked for approval,
I believe this is an info only
yeah,
item.
when you asked for the approval of the minutes, I heard you say executive. Did you also say finance and et cetera in there?
Executive and finance economic. Yes, I did.
You said both?
Yes.
Okay, I missed the latter part then. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dorothy. Moving on, number 7, election elected officials resolution.
Okay, on the screen and in your packets, you'll see the last resolution for the elected offices that are up in 2022. It doesn't have to be done this year. We just need to do it before April. We need to set the pay for the next 4 years for the sheriff, clerk of courts, and coroner. I gave everybody copies. We had gotten I'd gotten a wage survey from one of my counterparts in another county. And everybody has copies of all the elected official wages for almost every county. Ms. Negro, I emailed that to you, so you have it also. So this is up for discussion of how do you want to pay, what do you want to pay them for the next term of office?
Pat, go ahead.
Could we go to the second resolution? In the pay raises going from 23 to 24, could you explain how you came up with the numbers for 2024, what % raise you were considering there, or how those numbers came about?
First of all, I didn't come up with those numbers. This was a resolution that was passed in January 2020. So these numbers came up a couple years ago. And it looks to me like it was just adding a few $100s each year to their pay. So it looks to me like the previous pay for the register of deeds would have been $900 less the previous year. And so they just added $900 to each year to the pay raise. They did the same thing. If you look at the first resolution, I'll move it back.
So in this one from 23 to 24, that's a 3.5% raise. But in the first resolution, it's not a 3.5% raise. So I'm wondering about the inconsistency in the 3.5% in particular.
Okay, so the first resolution was passed in 2017. So that was a couple years earlier. And yes, there is a inconsistency. Some elected offices are both paid less and being given raises at consequently a lower rate. So, which is why you have the handouts, which is why you can see what other county is paying too. And that's one of the reasons why we're bringing this up early for discussion. So everybody has time to think about it and how do they want to move forward.
So the sheriff, I take it, is not part of a union where they get raises that are determined by the union?
Correct. The sheriff is a constitutional officer, so he does not fall under union rules. And I should point out, these are the three offices up in 22. So they would have been, these would have been the wages set for the previous years. These are also November elections, not April elections, still, that matter. This is information.
This is information only.
Yeah, you don't have that. We want to get people information ahead of time to think about it.
I think this document being so new to the board, we can move on this at a later date.
Right.
Unless, of course, the board has questions.
This is Pat. The only other information I'd like to see at the moment is what raises the staff got during the time period related to when these documents were created.
So you want the percentage of increased staff received from 2019 to present?
If that's the time period in which these numbers were arrived at, and that second document in particular, you know, that last pay bump, trying to understand the rationale for that in relation to the raises the rest of the staff got.
Okay,
Because maybe they anticipated this is where we would be with raises, and, you know, obviously that didn't turn out to be the case, or at least not looking that way at this point, especially that last bump of 3.5.
okay, we can get that information for you. The next, Mr. Chairman, Finance Committee meeting, you want this to come back to? Yeah, okay, just making sure. So we'll bring this back into the November Finance Committee.
Question.
All right,
Or-
Laura.
The second resolution I see is jumping the shark. We got a couple of years on that one. That first one, I would like to see, I mean, it's great having what the old one is, but just having recommendations from you, Dan, on what the next one should be. That I would appreciate. Otherwise, yeah. Because it seems like our coroner pay is higher than everybody else's. That is a part-time position, correct? Or on call, I guess.
Yeah, it's what is it? It's like 10 hours a week or something.
Okay. Okay. And then the clerk of courts is the full-time one, and of course the sheriff. So, you know, recommendations, and I'm hoping that, you know, with our wage scale study and everything, these constitutional officers would be included in there. So that way, as we have one big recommendation, hopefully, for wage scale as we pass something like that, hopefully that could be included in that, since that's this next year. So,
Yeah, except these officers, these constitutional officers, we have to get done before the wage scale is going to get done because of election dates.
November of next year, correct?
Right, these offices are up next year, so we have to pass their wages before papers are circulated for these offices. and a wage scale will not be done by spring.
Okay, we've still got some time.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, we do. Thank you, Laura. With that, your lights on. Pat, you got something?
No, I'm sorry. I'm done.
Okay.
Thanks.
I don't look back here, but we're good. This is my good bunch back here. Okay, with that, that was info only item. Yeah, item next would be the budget. Let me see here. Final review of the county budget and debt levy.
Okay, so this is what is the same budget you saw at the county board meeting, except we added back the money to the Chamber of Commerce. And there's 50,000 for economic development also. And then the pay raises that the county board requested. And so this is, to this, I would request that we add approximately $10,000 for the software that we discussed with Mike earlier. That's a little over 10,000. Sue, you have the actual quote. Can you tell us what the exact number is? It's like 10,500, but also Rachel has requested $6,000 in addition for laptops. We could use ARPA money for that, or we can stick it in the budget. However, this committee decides they want to do it. I should also point out the Springbook stuff is eligible for ARPA spending too. So right now it's not included in the budget, so we're looking to stick an extra 16,000 or so into IT. And we can pay for that either with stumpage, adding to the sales tax revenue, or again, we can use ARPA funding. Those would be the easiest ways.
I think I'd be rather cautious with regard to using some stumpage money only because,
Only because you don't know, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel more comfortable with sales tax because I think that number is really low to begin with. But again, you don't know what's going to happen next year.
you're right. Pat?
My preference would be use the ARPA to err on the side of being conservative. You know, then we're not going to keep spending through that. And if anything else comes up short, we're not caught short.
Well, and the wisdom in that is if we, we have 1.6, a little over 1.6 million in sales tax. If we end up getting 1.7, that's money that just stays in the bank then. And we get to build up our fund balance. So there's a lot of wisdom in using the grant money first and then building up our bank account.
I like having money in the bank.
Yeah.
Do we need, what kind of action do we want on this? Just a motion?
Well, for this, if you don't want to make changes to the budget, then I ask you to approve the budget as is. And then as far as the extra technology money, then we want to say, you don't want to stick in the budget and use ARPA funding for it.
Got it.
Pat, this is Laura. Was that a motion that you made then for your ARPA?
I did a motion for both, Laura.
Okay. Are we doing them separate?
Yes, please. That would make it easier on the note takers and for future generations.
I like that.
This is Pat. I'll make a motion to use 6,000 of ARPA funds for laptops.
And approximately 10,500 for Springbrook modules.
Thought you said you wanted them separate.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, that'd be
Okay,
great.
all right.
Ron will second that.
We got a motion and second to use ARPA funds for the $6,000 laptops. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
And now Springbrook. 10,500.
I'll make a motion that we do the 10,500 ARPA.
That's Ron.
You're welcome.
We have a motion on the floor.
This is
By
Marty
Ruskinder.
Vitek. I'll second it.
Marty Vitek seconds this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
For clarification on the chamber, the last board meeting, the board directed this come back to finance to decide how to handle that. So when you ask us to approve the budget that we're looking at, it's with that change in the budget, correct?
Well, the county board voted to include $35,000 for chamber and $50,000 for the estuary and outdoor.
And we were to figure out where that comes from.
Right, and I stuck, they were actually, figure out what it came from, and I stuck in sales tax revenue.
Oh,
Instead of getting 1.6 million, we're getting 1,635,000.
so we're gonna burn through a third of that 100,000 you mentioned a minute ago with that, okay.
So I stuck $35,000, $39,000.
Can you guys make sure and do this stuff on the microphones? Because I can't hear you, Dan.
Sorry, my microphone turned off on me. So I
It's all good.
stuck the money, I stuck the extra $39,000, the offsetting revenue into sales taxes.
So if the budget is approved as we're looking at it, includes that change then, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It was the cleanest way to get the money to the pay raises and ensure economic development and chamber get the money.
Mike, your mic is not on.
I'm sorry, I'm pulling a dick.
There you go.
I'd be looking for a motion to accept the 22 budget as presented.
Ron Stender will make a motion that we accept the 22 budget as it is.
This
We have
is
a
Laura
motion by
Negro.
Ron.
I second that.
We have a second by Laura Negro. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We have a budget for 22.
Okay, and just so everybody knows, I'll be taking this to executive committee for information only. Any changes can only be made at county board. Just so, well, at least they'll, as a courtesy, will information only.
Good job, guys.
Investments.
Okay, on the screen and in your packets, you'll find the investment report. There's not too much change in it. We will see changes in the ARPA money. We spent a little over 100,000 in cash already. And we have not transferred the 360 from HHS yet. We'll be doing that this year. And then the pay raises will be on the next pay period. Or the hazard pay, I should say, will be on the next payroll period. So in November, you'll see a gigantic increase in or decrease in the ARPA funding in this account.
Dan,
Yeah,
have the fiscal consultants been consulted on any of the investments inside of our little portfolio here that maybe there could be something?
they've
Put
been
in.
they've seen the information. We have not discussed what going forward yet.
Okay, thank you.
But Mike's on the phone here if he has any comment.
Yeah, we haven't looked in detail at that, but we plan on doing that later in a month or so when we're back. So,
Excellent. Thank you, Mike.
yeah.
I swear you guys are messing with me by not turning on those mics.
Yeah. With no other questions, we'll keep moving on. This is an info item only, and Mike will be addressing that next month when he comes to Ashland. Item next is sales tax.
Sales tax reports on your screen and in your packets. We're definitely chugging far ahead of last year. It's looking good. I expect we'll finish the year doing very well. That's my
That is also another information item only. Unless we have any questions, keep it coming in. With that, we've come to the end of our agenda. Item number 11 would be a verbal administrative update.
I think we talked about almost every update I would have during the meeting, so.
Item
Good
next.
question.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Dan, is M3 going to give us an update on how the wellness program and everything is in the meeting with the staff and such is going on, or do you have an update for that?
Yes, I do. Heather and I are going to be meeting with M3 in a week and a half. The last week in October, they'll be here. So we're going to be setting up both the staff meeting where staff can come in and ask any questions they have about healthcare. And two, we'll be discussing the wellness plan then too.
Thank you.
And they do know that we want to set up a wellness plan.
They should have, when we did the interviews, we told them.
No, I reinforced it. Mr. Kinney?
This 2018 Ashland County budget, one of the handouts, in total expenditures, it has less 0.005% county sales tax. These old budgets are posted online, and the sales tax should be 0.5%. If we could correct those.
Yes, we can. It should be. And
Yeah,
Mr. Kinney's
and-
correct. It
Yeah,
should
and the
be.
old ones on, because they're posted online. And
Yep,
if we
I will
could make
have on those.
corrections.
I will have those corrected for you.
Okay, thank you.
And he's corrected. 0.005 means
0.5%.
it means, well, 5 it means 1,000%. So yeah, he's correct. It should be 0.5.
Anyone have a recommendation for the next meeting date? We will not have a meeting before the next county board meeting, correct?
Not unless in a situation come. No, we will not have a meeting unless something drastic were to come up before the county board that necessitates a meeting. And then I will contact you, Mr. Chairman, in that case.
So a regular scheduled meeting will be,
It is the second Thursday of the month. So that will be November 11th.
We're closed that day.
Oh, that's Veterans Day. That's correct. If it's, does the committee want to do the following Thursday then, the 18th? The other week is deer hunting, so nobody really wants to do that.
When do we need a meeting from your perspective to address what's coming next? I'm, because once this budget's done, which we're close to, then you start thinking about the next one. You've
Right.
got the survey results from the community, setting priorities, and that, can be used to help form the coming budgets. When would be a constructive time to have a meeting?
Well, I think November 18th would be a better time because the county board will be on the 9th. So, the 18th is really then the only time in November we can meet. Well, that week at least, anywhere between the 15th and 18th. Like I said, the 22nd through the 26th is Thanksgiving week and deer hunting. So if you don't look at the 18th or so, you're looking into December. And I would think you at least want some sort of update in November.
Sounds good.
So November 18th would be a Thursday. Unless you guys have a different day you prefer. But, and we'll get, if you choose a different day, we'll get it online right away.
I appreciate you getting it online right away.
So, Mr. Chairman, is the 18th okay?
November 18th, sounds good.
Fine.
Yep.
Okay. November 18th at 9 o'clock will be the next meeting and it's being, and just for the record, it's being postponed due to Veterans Day.
Sounds good. We have a date. I'm looking for one more motion.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
We have a motion by Ron, second by Marty to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye.